You were taught to look for freedom in choices. Careers, relationships, opinions, lifestyles. That was the first deception. Freedom is not measured by how many doors you see, but by who built the hallway. You don't live in an open world. You live inside a system engineered to sort, rank, and extract. The illusion survives because it feels voluntary. Power never announces itself as control. It presents itself as normality, routine, common sense. This is just how things work. The moment you accept that sentence, you stop thinking like a sovereign and start functioning like a resource. Not because you're weak, but because you were trained to confuse comfort with autonomy. Look at outcomes, not intentions. Intentions are how controlled people explain themselves. Outcomes reveal who is actually directing movement. You wake up when required, work where permitted, speak within boundaries, desire pre-approved goals, and call it a life. The system doesn't need to chain you. It only needs you predictable. This is the first lens shift. Society is not organized around fairness, fulfillment, or morality. It is organized around control efficiency. Every institution, education, work, media, relationships exist to stabilize behavior at scale. Stability is power. Power hates randomness. You are not encouraged to be free. You are encouraged to be legible. Legibility is the enemy of sovereignty. From childhood, you were taught obedience dressed as virtue. Be polite. Be loyal. Be a team player. Don't cause trouble. These are not moral teachings. They are behavioral conditioning protocols. They flatten variance. They reduce risk for those above you. A man who is easy to predict is easy to manage. A man who is easy to manage is already owned. The illusion deepens because control no longer looks violent. It looks administrative. Algorithms instead of whips. Incentives instead of threats. Social approval instead of force. The modern cage is psychological, not physical, and that makes it harder to see, harder to resist, and far more effective. You think power lives in money or titles. That's naive. Those are trophies handed to compliant winners. Real power lives upstream, in rule setting, in defining what is rewarded, what is punished, and what is unthinkable. If someone else defines your fears, desires, and moral boundaries, they don't need to touch you. You move yourself. This is why rebellion fails when it's emotional. Anger is still a reaction. Protest is still engagement. The system absorbs it, redirects it, monetizes it. Control doesn't fear resistance. It feeds on predictable resistance. What it fears is refusal to play assigned roles. Understand this clearly. You are not treated as an individual. You are treated as a unit within a class. Your value is not your potential. It is your function. What do you produce? What do you consume? How reliably do you comply? These questions are answered continuously about you, whether you ask them or not. The uncomfortable truth is this: most men prefer the illusion. Sovereignty demands responsibility, isolation, and risk. Illusion offers belonging, narratives, and excuses. So the system doesn't need to enslave you. It waits for you to volunteer. This chapter is not about despair. It is about accuracy. Before you can identify control, you must abandon the fantasy that you are above it. Intelligence does not exempt you. Awareness does not protect you. Only position does. From this point forward, you are not asked how you feel. You are asked where you stand. The next step is to identify the machinery itself, the classes of control that decide who is used, who is protected, and who is sovereign. Control is never singular. It is layered, redundant, and adaptive. If one lever fails, another engages. That is why most men sense manipulation but cannot locate it. They feel pressure without seeing the hand. To understand power, you must classify it. Not morally, mechanically. There are 4 primary classes of control. Every system uses them. Every hierarchy depends on them. Every man lives under at least one, often several simultaneously. Your tier is defined by which one governs you most effectively. First, control through fear. This is the oldest and crudest mechanism. Pain, loss, exclusion, humiliation, violence. Fear creates immediate compliance, but it decays quickly. It requires constant reinforcement. That is why fear-based control is used on the lowest tiers, those considered disposable. When fear governs you, your decisions shrink. You avoid risk. You accept humiliation. You trade dignity for safety. This class produces obedience, not loyalty. Fear is efficient but inelegant. It breaks people. Broken tools are cheap and replaceable. Second, control through reward. This is the preferred mechanism for the functional class. Salaries, promotions, status symbols, access. You are not threatened. You are promised. Reward-based control is cleaner. It creates hope, ambition, and competition directed upward, never outward. You work harder not because you must, but because you want what is dangled. This class is more stable than fear. It convinces you the system is fair. That effort equals outcome. That patience will be rewarded. It does not guarantee success, only participation. Most men die inside this class, still chasing the next token. Third, control through identity. This is where control becomes sophisticated. You are no longer managed by incentives alone, but by self-concept. You behave in certain ways because that's who you are. The good man, the loyal man, the professional, the believer. Identity control is efficient because enforcement becomes internal. You police yourself. You shame yourself. You attack others who threaten the narrative. At this level, men will suffer voluntarily. They will sacrifice opportunity to preserve identity. They will defend a system that exploits them because abandoning it would require ego death. Identity is the strongest leash ever invented. Fourth, control through meaning. This is the apex. When meaning governs you, obedience feels transcendent. You are not just living, you are serving something greater. Nation, God, progress, justice, purpose. Meaning-based control overrides survival instincts. Men will die smiling under it. This class is reserved for shaping civilizations, not managing individuals. It is slow, generational, and absolute. When meaning is installed, questioning becomes heresy. At this level, power no longer needs visibility. Here is the inversion you must grasp. The higher the class of control, the less it feels like control. Fear feels like oppression. Meaning feels like destiny. That is why the most controlled men often believe they are the most free. You do not choose which class governs you. You are assessed and sorted. Your psychology determines your leash. Anxious men get fear. Ambitious men get rewards. Insecure men get identity. Existential men get meaning. The system is not cruel. It is efficient. Understand this. These classes are not equal. They stack. Fear supports reward. Reward reinforces identity. Identity protects meaning. The deeper you go, the harder it is to escape, because escape threatens who you think you are. This chapter is not asking you to reject control. That would be childish. Control is inevitable. The question is whether you are subject to it or positioned above it. To move forward, you must recognize the human patterns that live inside each class. Control only works because men repeat themselves. Systems do not control individuals. They control patterns. Once you understand this, personalities become irrelevant. Names disappear. What remains are repeatable behavioral types, archetypes that can be predicted, positioned, and exploited. There are 4 dominant archetypes produced by the classes of control. Most men recognize themselves in one and feel insulted by it. That reaction is diagnostic, the obedient laborer, governed primarily by fear. This man values security above all else. Stability is his religion. He follows rules not because he believes in them, but because breaking them feels dangerous. He avoids confrontation, defers authority, and mistakes compliance for humility. His greatest fear is lost job, status, approval. The system uses him as infrastructure. Reliable, silent, replaceable. He is not persuaded. He is contained. As long as consequences loom, he will function. He rarely rebels because rebellion risks collapse. He calls this being realistic. The loyal believer, governed by identity. This man defines himself through affiliation. His worth comes from belonging to a group, ideology, profession, or moral frame. He doesn't ask if something benefits him. He asks if it aligns with who we are. Loyalty becomes his virtue and his blind spot. The system loves him because he self-enforces. He shamas deviants, attacks critics, and sacrifices willingly. He cannot be reasoned with when threatened because reason endangers identity. He calls this having principles. The transactional climber, governed by reward. This man understands the game partially. He trades effort for advancement, obedience for access. He is competitive, disciplined, and alert, but still dependent on permission. His ambition keeps him moving. His dependence keeps him loyal. The system uses him as fuel. He innovates, produces, and enforces metrics. He believes proximity to power equals power. It doesn't. He calls this playing smart. The architect, governed by none because he operates above the classes. This is not a moral category. It is a positional one. The architect designs incentives, narratives, and structures. He rarely appears virtuous. He is not emotional. He does not need mass approval. His leverage comes from asymmetry, information, timing, coordination. There are fewer architects than you think. Most people who believe they are independent thinkers are simply loyal believers with unconventional branding. Here is the critical fracture. The first 3 archetypes are controlled. The 4th controls, not because he is better, but because he understands the machinery and refuses internal leashes. He may obey externally while remaining internally sovereign. That distinction changes everything. Notice this. Society praises the first 3 and demonizes the 4th. Obedience is called humility. Loyalty is called goodness. Ambition is called success. Architecture is called manipulation. This moral inversion is not accidental. It protects the hierarchy by shaming those who see it clearly. Most men oscillate between the first 3 archetypes depending on context. Fear at work, identity in politics, reward in relationships. This fragmentation keeps them unstable and reactive. Fragmented men are easy to steer. The architect is consistent. He understands that morality is a language used to regulate behavior, not a universal truth. He listens to it without believing it. He complies when useful and disappears when necessary. This chapter is not an invitation to arrogance. It is a warning. If you do not consciously choose your position, the system will assign you one, and it will not be generous. Now, the threat must be made undeniable. These patterns are not modern. They are ancient, biological, and recurring. If you believe control is a modern invention, you are already defeated. Technology did not create domination. It refined it. The tools change. The logic does not. Every civilization that survives long enough converges on the same structures, because they are rooted in human nature, not ideology. History is not a story of freedom expanding. It is a story of control becoming more efficient. Empires did not fall because they were immoral. They fell because their control mechanism stopped working. Rome did not collapse when it was cruel. It collapsed when incentives broke, identities fractured, and meaning decayed. The moment soldiers stopped believing, reward stopped motivating, and fear lost credibility. The structure rotted from inside. This pattern repeats because humans repeat. Biology makes it inevitable. Humans are not equal in risk tolerance, intelligence, discipline, or foresight. Hierarchies emerge naturally to manage this variance. Once a hierarchy exists, control is required to stabilize it. Without control, entropy wins. With control, power concentrates. This is the part men resist. Most people want to be controlled. Not consciously, but behaviorally. Control removes the burden of decision. It offers scripts, roles, justifications. When things fail, there is someone to blame. Sovereignty offers none of that. Sovereignty offers consequence. That is why revolutions fail. They remove one controller and install another. The masses do not want autonomy. They want a better manager. The slogans change. The control classes remain. Fear becomes ideological. Reward becomes symbolic. Identity becomes national. Meaning becomes sacred. Modern systems are simply more surgical. Surveillance replaces suspicion. Data replaces intuition. Algorithms replace overseers. You are not watched because you are dangerous. You are watched because you are predictable. Predictability is monetizable. Chaos is expensive. Even intimacy is not spared. Relationships follow the same control logic. One partner fears loss. One trades reward. One clings to identity. One frames meaning. Whoever sets the frame holds the power. Romance is not exempt from hierarchy. It is one of its most efficient carriers. Here is the brutal constant. Control always wins because it aligns with incentives. Men who refuse control are outcompeted by those who exploit it. Men who moralize power are crushed by men who operationalize it. Nature does not reward fairness. It rewards effectiveness. You cannot opt out. Withdrawal is still a position and usually a weak one. Isolation without leverage is just another form of submission. The hermit still depends on the system he pretends to escape. This chapter exists to eliminate false hope. There is no golden age ahead. There is no mass awakening coming. Control is tightening because complexity demands it. Larger populations require stronger coordination. Stronger coordination requires deeper control. The only variable is placement. You are either shaped by the system or shaping within it. There is no neutral ground. Every historical figure remembered as powerful understood this early. They did not fight control. They mastered it. If this feels unsettling, good. Comfort is how the system confirms compliance. Now the conversation must turn from diagnosis to strategy. Not rebellion, repositioning. Rebellion is a child's fantasy. It announces itself, burns hot, and gets absorbed. Strategy is quieter. It bends without breaking and advances while appearing compliant. If control is unavoidable, the only rational move is to change how it acts on you. The first shift is internal. Stop confusing morality with strategy. Morality is a social technology used to regulate behavior across groups. Strategy is situational. When you moralize your actions, you surrender flexibility. When you moralize others, you blind yourself to their incentives. The system thrives on this blindness. Repositioning begins by identifying which class of control currently governs you and why it works. Fear works because you are dependent. Reward works because you are replaceable. Identity works because you are insecure. Meaning works because you are searching. None of these are insults. They are diagnostics. You do not escape a class of control by resisting it. You escape by making it inefficient. Fear loses power when you reduce dependence. Optionality is insulation. The man who can walk away cannot be easily threatened. This does not require wealth. It requires asymmetry skills, information, networks that are not visible on the surface. Quiet leverage outperforms loud defiance. Reward loses power when you decouple effort from validation. When you understand that incentives are designed to extract maximum output at minimum cost, you stop chasing tokens. You negotiate. You delay. You trade selectively. You treat rewards as instruments, not affirmations of worth. Identity loses power when you refuse singular definitions. The system prefers clean labels because they simplify control. This is who you are becomes, this is how you must behave. Multiplicity disrupts this. You become unreadable. You adopt masks without believing in them. You let others misclassify you. Meaning loses power when you question the beneficiary. Every grand narrative serves someone. Always ask, who gains if I sacrifice? If the answer is abstract, distant, or unnamed, the meaning is likely installed, not discovered. You do not reject meaning, you privatize it. Notice the pattern. Repositioning is subtraction, not addition. You remove hooks. You do not seek dominance. You seek immunity. Immunity precedes leverage. Externally, you may still comply. You show up. You perform. You speak the language. But internally, you are no longer owned. This internal sovereignty is invisible and therefore safe. Power does not attack what it cannot detect. This is how architects move. They are not loud. They are not pure. They are patient. They let others exhaust themselves chasing recognition while they accumulate position. Do not mistake this for cowardice. Cowardice fears exposure. Strategy anticipates timing. There is a difference. This chapter is not telling you to manipulate everyone. That would be inefficient. It is telling you to stop being the most manipulated person in the room. Awareness without behavioral change is still submission. Once you reposition, something must die. The old identity will resist. It will call this betrayal, coldness, corruption. That voice is not moral, it is trained. The final step is execution through identity death. Every system survives by convincing you that who you are is fixed. Stable identities are predictable. Predictable men are controllable. That is why the most violent act you can commit, without touching anyone, is to abandon the identity you were given. Your current identity was not chosen. It was assembled. Family expectations. Social rewards. Moral conditioning. Survival adaptations. Over time, these fragments fused into a character you defend reflexively. You call it me. The system calls it a handle. This identity is useful to the system. It tells others how to treat you and tells you how to behave. It limits your options while giving you the comfort of consistency. Consistency feels like integrity. In reality, it is often just inertia. The first symptom of identity control is emotional resistance to change. Not logistical resistance, emotional. Guilt, shame, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being judged, fear of being alone. These emotions are not evidence of truth. They are evidence of attachment. The tighter the grip, the stronger the leash. Identity death is not self-improvement. It is subtraction. You stop defending traits that no longer serve position. You stop performing goodness for approval. You stop advertising loyalty to structures that would replace you tomorrow. You let go of the need to be seen as one of the good ones. This feels like loss because it is. You lose social warmth. You lose narrative certainty. You lose the right to complain. The system rewards identity compliance with emotional anesthesia. When you step outside it, sensation returns cold, sharp, clarifying. Most men abort here. They mistake discomfort for danger. They retreat back into familiar labels: worker, nice guy, believer, victim. These roles offer protection at the cost of sovereignty. The system welcomes them back without punishment. That mercy is strategic. The replacement identity is not a persona. It is a stance, observational, selective, non-reactive. You do not announce it because it is not performative. You measure before you move. You speak less. You reveal less. You decide privately. This identity does not seek validation because validation is a tracking signal. It does not seek belonging because belonging creates obligation. It does not seek moral high ground because morality is terrain owned by the crowd. Instead, it prioritizes position, leverage, and timing. This is where many misunderstand Machiavelli. He did not advocate cruelty for pleasure. He advocated clarity over sentiment. He understood that appearing virtuous is often more useful than being virtuous, and that believing in appearances is fatal. The new identity accepts this, without resentment. It does not rage at the system. It studies it. It does not fantasize about collapse. It prepares for continuation. It does not ask to be spared. It becomes difficult to use. Once identity dies, something strange happens. Control weakens. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer finds purchase. Fear has fewer targets. Rewards feel smaller. Identity narratives bounce off. Meaning becomes personal, not injectable. This is not enlightenment. It is positioning. From here, there is only one thing left to address: the final sorting. The system does not wait forever. It is constantly tightening classifications. Those who hesitate are assigned.